Taoiseach, for generations Irish people were subject to foul racist stereotypes. The Tory government in Britain in particular specialised in scapegoating the Irish for problems that the government itself were responsible for, but implied that the Irish were a problem, there was too many of us. But in fact, Irish people contributed hugely to building British society, building housing, building roads. We did the same in Ireland. Is the government now leaning into the same tactics as the British Tories in scapegoating immigrants who are coming to this country? I ask that question. Obviously, we know far-right groups have pushed this narrative. But I ask, is the government now, in the face of election, beginning to do it as well, with talk of, we have to check immigration and the numbers of asylum applicants, when in actuality, Michael Taft has just done a brilliant paper showing that essentially our health service would collapse without immigrant workers. I was stunned at the figures myself, but people need to know them. 51% of the people working in our health service are non-EU nationals. 36% in information and communication. 24% in industry, 34% in other sectors, and I could go on. So I would suggest that the government needs to state very, very clearly that immigrants are contributing positively to Irish society, and if there's a problem with housing and accommodation, which there is, it is the political system, not immigrants, that are to blame for that.
Deputy Boyd Barrett, let me say very clearly, I absolutely abhor racism in all its form, and I want to join with you in acknowledging, on the record, as they say, it's the very positive contribution that migrants make to this country. You use the example of our health service, you could use our hospitality sector, you could use our schools, you could pick any example. We are a better country as a result of immigrants coming here, just like Irish people made other countries better. I fully accept that, fully agree with that. But I also know this, we do have to have a system that is rules-based. We do have to have the rules enforced, we have to have transparency around the rules, we have to have an efficiency in terms of how the rules are applied for the credibility and sustainability of the system. There isn't a country in the world that can't do that. The other point I'd make, and I think Deputy O'Murk, who referenced it, there are a number of ways of legitimately coming to a country. International protection is there for a very specific purpose. We should assess that quickly. You have a right to stay, you don't have a right to stay, give that determination and then act on it. But there are other ways, including the work permit system, and I do think we need to keep challenging ourselves in terms of the work permit system and making sure that that's a viable route for many as well. Deputy Murphy, I just completely disagree with your characterisation in relation to what we did around Mount Street or indeed at Grand Canal. I mean, we nearly had a public health emergency at Mount Street. You would have read of some very significant situations that people were encountering. Every single person who was in a tent at Mount Street with access to without access to proper sanitation got relocated to a better facility. Not an ideal one, but a better one. And I genuinely believe there's a humanitarian element to this. Similarly at Grand Canal. So yes, tents are then disposed of on the grounds, on the health advice that you can't be reusing them, but people are provided with a better level of shelter and access to sanitation. That is the motivation. In relation to the decision we've taken in relation to Ukraine, people from Ukraine, we have provided a significant lead in time, but we've also only applied it to people in fully serviced accommodation. People who are being provided with free accommodation, with free food, with free utilities, and crucially, with the right to work as well. So, I mean, there'll be many people outside of that, in alternative forms of accommodation were not covered by the government decision.